Server restart in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to Server Restart In. It's a World of Warcraft podcast where three opinionated players like to get together and discuss their thoughts and opinions about the current state of the game and things related to it. My name's Jim, joined by Kristen.
Hi.
And Brian.
Hello.
And this week we're going to go ahead and touch on a few things. The world first Mythic race has been finished.
Yay!
Limit was the first guild to down Mythic Castle Nathria
with 2 boomkins in the raid. Woo!
Yep, somebody's excited about that.
Yep.
I didn't really follow it because I don't really care. But I think Echo was really close.
Oh, yeah.
And Echo, I think, is the people that
Well, that's why they're an Echo.
Yeah. Well,
they'll never be first.
they were the people that left Method and started their own group. So they have experience with it and all that stuff. And I think, did they get to Denathris first? Because they weren't streaming. They stopped streaming when they got to it so that they didn't have to worry about their tactics being stolen, I guess. There's just
interesting.
Yeah, it was just that concern. I mean,
well, to be fair, they didn't have any sponsors or anything, so they had the leisure to do that. Like Limit couldn't do that because they had sponsors, out the whatever. I don't know how many sponsors they had, but they had sponsors, so they couldn't just turn off their stream. Echo could because they didn't have anybody they were beholden to.
Right. And that's another thing too. Like for something that's not an endorsed competition by Blizzard, or it's not a, what's the word I'm looking for? They're not running it. They're not. I can't think of the term. They
non-regulated
sanctioned?
or something of that nature.
Yeah, they're not regulating it. It's not necessarily like a sanctioned one. It's just something that's in the game. So for something like that to get that kind of sponsorship to where, these guilds and these companies that run the guild or whatever are, like I understand sponsors and like ad revenue and stuff like that for like popular streamers getting contracts for advertisements and product placement and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, I guess I can see it pertaining to something like this, but I mean, these world first races, I mean, these people are nuts. I mean, it's like a lot of time in a chair to go to bang your head against this brick wall to hopefully, get past it. And it just seems like, I don't know, it's just weird that companies are going to put money into that, I don't know.
Where does their advertising come into?
It's on their, I believe it's on their, like on their streams, like they have like, I don't know if they run ads or if they like specific things or that they just have like logos and stuff like that. Because I mean, it's pretty much, I didn't watch any of it, but I'm assuming it's like some pretty high-end stream setups, where they have the different like the tickers and all that stuff. And like I've seen stuff where they've had commentators and all that kind of stuff watching it. And it's just, I don't know. There's a lot of people that watch it, and it's obviously a good place for product placement. It's a good place to spend some advertising money. It just seems, I don't know, it's just crazy.
Interesting.
But in light of that, was it somebody from Limit that did the math on how much?
Yeah. So they there's 2 tweets that he did, and I don't know which one. I'm not Twitter savvy, so I don't know which one came first or not. Anyway, the first one that I saw, he had they had spent 331 million gold, $57,000 real life dollars worth of gold. He just converted it. They didn't spend that much real life gold, but if they had, that's what it would have been worth. But then he broke it down in another tweet, and he said 146 million in external loans from people who they just, borrowed from. $79.84 million in internal loans. So people, obviously through the guild and stuff. 225,847,845 total loans. Oh my God. They started with a decent bit of gold, so the total cost this tier was about 276,740,000. To buy that much gold in tokens would cost 46,123 and 33 cents.
So the gold was used to, I'm assuming, purchase. Well, we know they purchased BOEs, and that's a standard practice, is to buy gear that people are getting in the world or whatever, or in the raids and whatnot, and probably supply like cauldrons and stuff like that. Like, I'm sure Shadestone was pretty hard to come by at the very beginning because you couldn't necessarily, I don't know when the earliest anybody would be able to make those were, and those are used for the cauldrons.
Mm-hmm.
And not to be confused with is it shaded stone?
Yeah.
That's the the blacksmithing thing.
They didn't necessarily need the cauldrons because they could have just made crap tons of the potions and given it to. They're all on the same server, since they have to be on the same server, because Mythic, you have to be on the same server. So the cauldrons weren't so much a big deal. They just needed to have people who either were herbing and I'm sure they probably, as a guild, have that support structure in place where they have a ton of people who are doing that stuff, making the gear that they need, and getting the mats that they need to make cauldrons and feasts, or food, more specifically, not feasts, because feasts give you like 10 less than what the individual foods will give you, which, okay.
Is it really that much?
Yeah. I think it gives you, feasts give you 20, and the individual foods give you 30.
Which, that's just crazy in and of itself. But
yeah, I would think that it kind of sucks because the feasts take so much that you would think that they would give you a little bit more, but apparently not.
Well, and raid supplies by the wayside, it's just buying gear, right? So most of us, when we are trying to gear up, we're going through and or running stuff to try and get gear, and right now gear is pretty hard to come by. The number of drops for the bosses is, I think, an average size rate of 20. It's
like three
pieces per boss, which there was that bug in the beginning where it was 5, but they fixed that.
Oh my God. Like,
I mean, they intended for it to be less accessible, but then if you have the funds and the assets to buy that, you're literally buying your edge.
mm-hmm.
Right? And that's kind of to me cheapens like any type of world first race, because now there is obviously a level of skill that comes into play with these kind of things, right? You have to be able to do the mechanics in a certain way, and that takes skill. You have to be able to play your class and all that other kind of stuff. But the difference between, I don't know what I heard that their average eye level was. It was like something high, like 220 something or something like that for the raid. Which, when you're doing, maybe it was higher, I don't know, but it was ridiculous. And the only way to get that is to be buying that gear, because there's not that much loot dropping, And so the people with the biggest coffers, or who can get the most money somehow, are going to naturally have a foot up above the rest, right? Or a leg up above other people. Right? I mean,
but isn't it kind of like that in like professional sports too? Like, you get the better players who cost more if you
well, you're paying for talent,
Right.
So gear is not talent. That would be like if somebody had...
Right, but you're not paying for those players, though. So that's the kind of the equivalent.
Are they?
They're probably keeping a roster of folks that are highly competent and highly skilled.
And they're probably
in addition to,
contracted,
and I guarantee they're moving out talent. I mean, did they take lower end specs, right, for DPS? I mean, chances are they probably didn't. They probably didn't take the lower end of healing. They were probably highly optimized to do those fights.
Sure. Yes.
In Mythic. So.
Well, yeah, because they have less of a because they don't overgear it. They have they had to take for healing classes. They had to take ones that have good damage. So they did 2 holy paladins. Disc priests for barrier. They had to have ways to mitigate the damage because they didn't have the gear at that point to be able to out heal a significant portion
but their comps changed from fight to fight too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But I mean, I can't imagine that people that are in these guilds aren't receiving some sort of compensation. I mean, you can't run it like a business and receive advertisement loans and not have players be compensated,
right,
and expect to retain players.
Well, and they also stream too, and they get revenue from that because I was watching both Boomkins streaming during it. I mean, so they're obviously they get revenue from that. They get subs, followers, all of that too. So,
but who's to say that one guild isn't going to offer them bonuses or something like that?
Sure.
To recruit. I mean, I'm sure that there's poaching from guild to guild, right? And that's what happens, and that's akin to your player contracts in professional sports. But with professional sports, I mean, I don't know, it's not like they have different sets of pads or different, balls that they play with or something like that. You know what I mean? It's
right.
The playing field's even. It's more so just the ability and the skills of the player. And I think being able to take 2 players of same skills, but have one have access to better gear, obviously that person's going to outperform the other person.
Well, the thing is too, though, that they've said, on numerous occasions that it's not sanctioned by Blizzard. It's just a community event. And they do that with the MDI. Everybody who's in the MDI gets access to all the same gear. They all get, and that is a Blizzard run event.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying though, is that's why world first kind of stuff is not, it's just kind of okay, that's great, that these people are competing at this level and all that stuff, but it almost feels like, that the people with the bigger banks have an edge.
I mean, there's, you could definitely argue all kinds of ways for edge. You could say, okay, well, there's the edge because North America gets the bosses first. But then they also get the bugged bosses first, where, they wasted a whole bunch of pulls on the second to last boss, I think.
The Stone Generals?
Yeah. And it was bugged. And so they, sure, they were coming up with strategies, but they were coming up with strategies that were probably flawed based on those bugs. So then they had to, figure out different ones. I don't know. It's very interesting to watch. I enjoy watching the world first race. I don't really think of it as anything. I think of it as entertainment. You know what I mean? It's not anything that's oh, this is, the Super Bowl of of WoW.
But it kind of is. They treat it like that. I mean,
the players do.
The players do, and the community does. And again, it's you're at a point where there's no. It just doesn't feel like there's a fair playing field, and there's not. I mean, again, like you said, sure, they get, bosses first in North America, and yeah, there's the potential that they could be bugged. There's also the potential they could not be bugged, or it could be bugged in their favor.
Mm-hmm.
So they could blow through and not waste any time on that kind of stuff, and then end up ahead of another group because they fixed the bug the next day. So on EU, it comes out with that bug fixed, and now that boss is more difficult, and they're at that boss, and now that's a blocking point where the other people are past it, working on the next thing.
Mm.
I mean, there's all kinds of stuff around that, and it's just, it just causes me to not really have a vested interest in it, just because, it's just, I don't know.
I don't really have a vested interest, and honestly, I don't really care who wins. I mean, I'm not like, ooh, EU versus US or anything like that. To me, it's just entertaining. It is very, very interesting to see people who are very, very good players at this game pushing content like that. And it was especially joyful for me to watch Boomkins because, I am not a great Boomkin, but I enjoy it, and I enjoy playing it a lot, and I immerse myself in it, and so seeing them play, and I'm like, oh man, they have it down, and they're like, oh yeah, and you do this at this point, and you do this at that point, and it was really, really neat to watch, like for me, it was just like, dang, and they had a bunch of DKs in there, because DK is apparently really, really good. Yeah, I mean, it was, I don't know, it was neat. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching it.
I don't know. They're making money with this stuff, and they're making money for something that's not sanctioned as a competition. So, I mean, and it's,
and it could be. The thing is, it could be, and it could be a healthy one. That's the thing, is that I think it could be a healthy competition that's put on, and if they did it like the MDI, you think, like where they just gave them access to, whatever the gear, everybody had access to the gear and the because think about the argument where, like you said, I did see something about somebody complaining about the time zone difference.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, there's nothing, you can't make the argument that anybody has a head start, because that's just the way it is, right? You can't, the community, that reference being the community, came up with this race, right? And it is what it is. Like, but in reality, yeah, I do think there would be an interesting thing on. I mean, I would personally, it probably wouldn't keep my attention very long. Like even the Mythic Dungeon International thing.
Yeah, I don't
really
watch
care
the
for,
MDI.
but I've read quite a bit of people, from an esports perspective, actually enjoy that.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
well, I think the problem that Blizzard has with it, and why they don't sanction it and do anything with it, is because you potentially have a one-night race.
Well, I mean, not only that, but then they'd have to make sure that shit wasn't bugged. You know what I mean? Like that, I think, is their more pressing concern, because it always is bugged.
Well,
there is always bosses that are bugged in the World First race.
In Najdatar, that's the raid, right? Did I get it right?
The
this
Eterna
time?
Palace?
No, Najdatar.
Wasn't that the Eterna Palace?
Oh,
sure.
that was.
Yeah.
I'm not Ny'alotha. Ny'alotha. Battle for Ny'alotha, right? That one. Yeah. The way I referred to it before. Yeah. No, the Ny'alotha raid. There was an instance where something was just fucking broken. They shut it all down.
Yeah.
Where there was, and I don't know if there was a race going on for World First still or what, but there was something that was way jacked up and they shut that down. But that's, again, this is why Blizzard doesn't want to do it, because they don't want to have to.
Well, then you've got to make sure.
You have to make sure that it's pristine. And the MDIs they don't have till later, so all the bugs are worked out of the dungeons, right? You have to make it accessible to everybody at the same time. You have to make sure that everybody is on equal footing as far as gear and all that kind of stuff, and they have access to the same thing. And again, it's not really something worth monetizing or whatever, because it's not a direct head-to-head competition. And granted, the MDI isn't either, but like you're doing like time runs and all that kind of stuff to advance. But you potentially have something that could last very little. Sometimes these bosses take forever. Sometimes they don't, right? Sometimes, people blow through them. And I don't know what the fastest world first was for Mythic after a release. But, you know what I mean? It's just, it would be hard to, hard to run something like that. Unless you just you broke it out into each boss and you just had them do timed runs on it, and these lowest cumulative time for all bosses, wins. So if you had a really good boss and a really bad boss.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, how do you really judge that? And now, granted, obviously, world first is first person to complete the Mythic raid, right? Mm-hmm. But, I mean, I don't know how you could make that into any type of esport competition, which, again, is probably why it's not. It's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I still think people with bigger budgets have a foot up in it.
Sure. Definitely. Oh, absolutely. I wish that they would stop putting like BOEs like that in there, but I mean, clearly that's not going to happen.
Well,
but
it's not even just the BOEs, right? And it's not just, the fact that they can get loans of gold from people. They can, now they're going to be probably doing carries, running carries to build up the guild bank again.
Mm-hmm.
I think we briefly talked about that, offline or whatever, about how, like, once they get done, they start potentially doing carries and runs and all that
to
stuff.
To prepare for the next tier.
So they can start, building up their resources and whatnot. But what's to stop them from taking that ad revenue, buying tokens, and selling them for gold? And now it becomes real money.
Yeah. I mean, nothing, I guess, but...
I mean, there's no way to track it.
There isn't, but why would you spend your real life money when you're...
So that you can win and get more sponsorships and more ad revenue and get that fame. And so when you win, now when you start having your debriefs or your after event interviews and all that kind of stuff, you're making more money that way. If you don't win, you don't get that, right? So you're not out the money, but it leads to potential more windfalls. And this is, I don't know if this is just all conspiratorial on my end.
Conspiracy corner.
No, we're not there yet. But I mean, it's like, I don't know how they run their business. I don't know what they do for this kind of stuff. It's beyond me. I don't really care how they do it. It just doesn't seem like it should be made out to be as big a deal as it is in the community when it's not a fair fight to begin with. For many reasons. Not just potential, BOE buying, real money being brought in to get gold and all that stuff, because we don't know.
Yeah. I guess, I mean, I just think it's entertaining. So I guess we're just going to,
Well, no, I mean, watching people play at that level and all that kind of stuff is interesting, right? It's interesting. It is something that, you can watch and get entertainment out of and all stuff, but you can do the same thing by just watching regular people stream, or when they do like their Mythic Pluses. Because I know you were watching some people do a 19.
Oh, yeah. I love watching that stuff.
Which blows my freaking mind.
Yeah.
But
it's just a lot of learning the dungeon and learning the pulls, and it's a lot of downgrading keys to build them back up again.
To a better one?
Yeah. Well, no. To build them back up again so they learn the pulls. So they're like, okay, we go in and I need to... So they had, they were healing with the Disc Priest. And they had a boomkin, because of course that's the keys that I'm interested in watching, is the ones with boomkins. And so, trees is an amazing tank cooldown. I mean, if the trees are out, your tank isn't getting hit, right? And trees are out for, like 10 seconds or something like that? That's 10 seconds of your tank not getting hit. That's a great tank cooldown on a minute cooldown, right? So it's pretty awesome. And it's great. It's OP, I think, in Mythic Plus. So you can pull, and if you've got the DPS, you can pull some pretty big packs. And if you're, the healers using, so they had a disc freeze, so using barrier. If you had a DK to use like anti-magic shell or something like that, or a zone, sorry. So if it's a caster pack, right? So that way they would reflects damage back, right?
No.
It doesn't.
That's
it just absorbs
that. Yeah, it reduces damage. That's a Torghast thing where it reflects stuff back.
Okay. And then you throw in the treants. And so you've got, 10 seconds of free damage, where the tank isn't taking damage and he can just, hammer on, the adds too and blah, blah, blah. So that's kind of nice, nice for the healer if they need to like stabilize people or, stuff like that. So it's really neat to watch people play the classes to their fullest extent. You know what I mean? Where I maybe don't necessarily, I try to, but I mean, there's times I forget to shift into bear and frenzied regen, or you know what I mean?
No.
Well,
the only druid I play is feral, and I just put bleeds on stuff and bite.
You never shift forms?
No.
Oh, you don't dungeon though with your druid. Then.
Not yet. Oh, speaking of dungeons, I was on my hunter, and I queued up for a dungeon. I was level 51 or whatever, and it was obviously Necrotic Wake's the only one. And I was kicking ass. I was top damage on all the bosses, and we get to the last one, and then I was a true hunter and didn't move out of the comet fall, and just like, wait, why is my health going down? Oh shit! Oh, I'm dead.
Oh,
that's awesome.
Oh,
and I was survival because that's the only hunting class I like to play.
Did you get turtle? You still get turtle as survival, right?
Yeah, but by the time I realized what the fuck was going on, I was already like one more hit and I was dead, and then I died. And I was just like, man.
Aww.
And then it took forever for them to kill the boss.
Oh, no.
And I'm just like, sorry, guys.
Aww.
But I was doing real good before that. I'm like, man, I'm making hunters proud. And then I'm out questing, and I'm in war mode because, what the hell? I like pain, right? And I'm doing this quest in Bastion, and there's one where you click on the thing, and some ether worm comes, and there was some Alliance people doing it, so I just kind of sat there, and this hunter came and started attacking my pet, and I'm like, well, fuck you. So I just frost trapped him and backed up or whatever, and he ran away. Okay, so then I went down, and then he started attacking me, so I killed him, and then started doing the quest, and I'm fighting this thing, and he comes back and starts attacking me, so I killed him while fighting the mob, did the mob or whatever, and then you go over to the part where it's like you're doing the forging stuff, where you have to put the fuel in and all that stuff. I go over to start doing that, like where you have to carry the stuff into that room. He started attacking me again, so I killed him again.
I thought you said he was a pally.
He was a pally.
Oh, I think you said he was a hunter in here.
I was a hunter.
Oh, okay.
I was on my hunter.
Yeah, I thought you said that he was a hunter.
No.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm just like, either he doesn't know how to play pally,
or you're a hunter god.
Yeah, no, he just didn't know how to play pally. Because it's like he wasn't, I don't know. It just seemed like he wasn't using his cooldowns. And like
he didn't bubble hearth?
No, he should have. He just, like, the first, like, it was like 16, 15, and 14 honor I got each kill. I'm like, so he's got quite a bit of honor levels, I would assume, for it to be that high.
I don't know what a high level of honor is for
I don't know what
kills,
what his rank
honestly.
was, but to get that much honor from somebody, they have to be pretty high, I would assume. But
I don't know.
And then I went in to start doing that stuff, and he came in and left me alone.
As he should have.
I'm like I wasn't bothering you. It's just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I guess that kind of leads into another topic. I've got several alts in the works. I've got a couple, one that's like kind of in the middle, and then one that I got all the way through using the Threads of Fate. The one where the mode where you can.
Oh yeah, that's right. You have to explain this to me because I signed up for it on my rogue, and then I haven't done anything with her.
Basically, what it is it allows you to immediately pick your covenant, and you can start. You get campaign quests that aren't like the actual starting campaign quest, like at level 60, but they are like assist, these other covenants, and you go to those zones and you do world quests or you do regular quests or bonus objectives or whatever to fill a meter up, go back to Oribos, go to the next one, that kind of thing.
Does it take a long time to level that way?
It doesn't take, I don't think it takes any longer, but it just, I don't know. It just didn't feel as fun to me. I don't know. I know you started one, Brian. I don't know how far you got.
So I've gotten my paladin, my hunter, and my rogue through them all, and I started them all on the Threads of Fate. I've ran a few world quests and stuff with my rogue and my paladin, and I honestly I don't think I've gotten into it enough to know whether or not I like it right now. Like first taste, I don't really like it so far, but I don't know. I mean, I like the freedom of being able to do anything I want to level, but I noticed that if I wanted to get that character to max quickly, that's going to be a lot more challenging to get that same fluidity compared to the linear quest line. So I do think I might regret it on my paladin because I want to play my paladin and run him through really quick. But
so could you?
It's what it is.
Could you go through the story up to like level 59 and a half or whatever, and then change to Threads of Fate for that last half a level, and so you're not stuck doing the story? And okay,
Yeah,
all right.
you can.
That sounds like maybe that would be viable.
You go back to
Oribos.
So it's the opposite side of Oribos where the portals are, and you go talk to the guy, and you can activate Threads of Fate at any time. If you choose
so you can't, but you can't go backwards though, right?
No, you can't go from Threads of Fate to story, but you can go from any point in the story to Threads of Fate.
So that wouldn't be bad. Maybe that would be a good way of doing it. So that way you've got the linear, but you don't have to stay there and because as soon as you get through and you hit 60 in Revendrath, you're like, okay, peace out. Let me go, do what I want to do to gear up and get going.
I do wish they would just go ahead and skip them all for characters, because I've noticed that's even when you just do the story and you're doing as fast as you can, it still takes 30 to 45 minutes to get through that intro line, and I think that's like 10 times worse than what the Warlords of Draenor one was. So
I think though that will throw off their levelings, right?
Probably so. Like all my guys have wound up at like 51 when they get out. So
yeah, and I think that kind of would probably mess with that a little bit. Maybe at some point they'll let you do that and just give you a chunk of XP. I don't know, but I definitely think that I'm more inclined to just do the story on my ults. Now, I probably won't do it on all my DKs because there's no point in that. Because I'm just going to put 3 DKs in each covenant since I have 12. But like my other characters, I may not necessarily be certain what covenant that I want them in. So it's nice to go through the story to get the different powers, right? So that way you can, and now I know that you can go, when you choose your covenant, you can test the powers out on the training dummies there, but that's not the same thing as getting the power and using it in combat and in the world and all that other kind of stuff, or in a dungeon and all that stuff, and actually feeling how it synergizes with your stuff. I'm not one of those people that can just throw something into a rotation at a training dummy and understand how it plays out with the class, right?
Yeah.
Which is why whenever I want to do classes or like a new class or whatever, I would, it's like, that's why I have 2 shamans, because I wanted to do one for resto, but I didn't want to just take my current one, who's enhancement, and just swap to resto and just try to learn it that way. Like I usually level as one spec and just that because that's the spec I'm going to play that class in. Like my hunter's prot, my paladin's prot, my priest is shadow, my hunter's survival since Anne's a warlord because melee hunter is the best hunter. You know, my rogue is the pirate one, whatever the hell. I can't think of the name of it now. Outlaw. I mean, that's just by leveling and by slowly introducing the skills, you know, you get a feel for how they kind of fit into the other things. I don't know, and I just kind of like that. And I feel that doing Threads of Fate kind of takes that away a little bit for me, but I don't know. It's definitely something worth trying.
I think it's awesome that they actually added it.
Mhm.
It's drastically different, and I love the freedom that you get to level up and feel like you're already level 60 with everything else. I just know that, like, if I wanted to get my character up really quickly, you know, I'm probably going to be jumping around a little bit more than I was before. So that's the only drastic difference I see. And, you know, that's not totally a bad thing.
Well, it definitely does feel longer because, like you said, there's not that linear path that you know where you're going to do the next stuff. With Threads of Fate, it's you have to look at the map and go, where is there a hub where there are bonus objectives and world quests and maybe quests that I can do in the zone to fill up this bar for my covenant for, you know, aiding Revendreth kind of thing. And then do all that and then move on. Now, I will say I did get my Resto Shaman up to 60 and got him in his covenant and have been working on that. And that was 3 or 4 weeks after launch, right? You get the renown pretty quick. You get they throw renown into quests that I wouldn't have imagined that they were in because I don't think they were there at the beginning. So I think that you can earn renown faster up to the current renown levels.
Yeah, I like
the
that.
later on in the game you get. And I know when you're doing Threads of Fate, as you do stuff, you get renown as well. So by the time you're 60, you're going to have X number of ranks of renown with your chosen covenant before you even have to start doing callings or go to the maw to get souls and all that stuff. So there is like a catch-up mechanic that's not just like increasing the gains of artifact power from items at lower levels, you know? Is it that time?
What time?
It's time for Conspiracy Corner.
No, Conspiracy Corner.
Yay! Yeah. So I get. Do you get it finally? Yeah. Whose clues? My clues.
Oh my.
So there's been some stuff going around about who is the Rune Carver.
Dun dun dun.
Now, some of the stuff that I've read indicates that he was imprisoned by the jailer at a certain point in time, which is not clear, but it seems to be.
I mean, he is because there's a cutscene that you get where when you hit, I think, 15 legendaries or something like that, memories that you've learned.
Right.
Where it's basically the jailer walking around telling him how he's imprisoned him and, you know, blah, 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 and being all nefarious and, you know, evil.
And that's when he mentions, you know, the objects of domination, which are Frostmourne and the Helm of Domination. And he calls them out specifically. So we know that was at a certain point in time where before they were taken by the Nathrism.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're called, right? The Dreadlords.
Mm-hmm.
And brought to the Burning Legion. So, obviously, he had to have been captured before that. Now, again, we don't know if Draka met the Primus. We also don't know. So, her death versus when those items were introduced to the Burning Legion and Ner'zhul and all that stuff, it's all real muddy. And we also don't know when the Primus went missing. Because the Rune Carver is, judging by his stature, is potentially an eternal one. Of the same likeness as the Jailer and the Winter Queen and the Archon and all that stuff. And the Arbiter, the Rune Carver, is probably a similar being, just based on sheer size. That could be a fallacy, but we don't really know much about him anyway. His face looks very similar to the statue of the Primus, in so much that it's got like that weird like skull mask thing. And he seems to have similar proportions. His hands may look very similar, so there's a lot of stuff being kicked around that, and I guess the Primus is good with forging things, because he forged the rune blade that we used to open the seat of the Primus and all that stuff. So there's a lot of stuff going around that it might be him. I've also seen something where he might be Draka's old boss, the guy from the House of Eyes. I can't remember his name, but because he was a master of subterfuge and all that kind of stuff, I think that's a pretty weak theory. I think that there is a lot of coincidental information, not information, but just coincidental things indicating that it may actually be the Primus. It's just hard to pinpoint when did the Primus get defeated, and or was he killed, was he captured? Who the hell knows? And if it was around the same time that the Rune Carver became a thing.
I don't know. I think he's the Primus. I mean, I don't know. Like, it seemed like the Primus disappears, and then we're introduced to the Rune Carver.
I mean, we're not.
Well, we're introduced to the dude who's doing our memories.
Right, but the Primus was already missing before
Yeah.
we met him. So, I mean, it's not like, hey, our buddy the Primus kind of went missing, and oh, hey, here's this new guy on the block.
Well, no, I mean, not that, but we know that the Primus is missing, and then we go to Torghast and we meet the Rune Carver, right? So, like, it's not a, hey, here's this dude, but I don't know, it just kind of is like, oh, well, that's interesting. It's something you just kind of keep, like, in your cap, right? Like, hey, that's interesting, and...
Well, that's what I think the strangest thing is that we know the Rune Carver has created some amount of these rune blades, right?
Morn blades.
Morn blade, yeah, Morn, yeah. So, and that the Primus has worked to develop the best army it can be to support the Shadowlands in defense of wherever their enemies are, right? So naturally, the blade kind of goes along with the idea of having an army, fighting, and stuff like that. So, not to mention that, like, we know the Primus created the Necrolord blade or whatever, right?
I don't know what it was called. It was the Blade of the Primus, I think, right? The one that we used to open up the seat of the Primus.
Yeah, which very obviously looks like it has runes engraved on it. Like,
yeah.
So, I think, and the fact that, like, the monument looks like, if the monument represents him, that looks like the Rune Carver.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just throw a blanket on him.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, the Primus could be somebody completely different, and we could technically just be looking at the statue of the Rune Carver.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact is, the Rune Carver was just working for the Primus, and here's my conspiracy: Zorval is the Primus.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if
I don't know why,
I
but
don't
it
know.
sounds fun.
Yeah, I don't know if the Jailer could be the Primus. That's what I think, though, that the leader of the House of Eyes, Zorval's the Jailer.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's his name.
When did we find that out? That I didn't clearly pay any attention to.
Well, his furnace is like right there at the portal. It says Zorval's furnace. They filter his name in through the story quite a bit. So I'm not sure when we learned it, but yeah, it's Zorval.
I think it might be when there's at the end of the story where there's the meeting of the different leaders, the Eternal Ones.
I must have missed that.
But that was so the leader of the House of Eyes, I think, was not the jailer, or I'm sorry, not the Rune Carver. I think that he was masquerading as the Primus. I think is what I read, as far as like conspiracy is concerned.
Wait, who was masquerading as the Primus?
Draca's old boss that supposedly died when they blew up. I forget his name, but like the leader of the House of Eyes.
Okay.
Who is Big Bad Spy Daddy, right?
So he was pretending to be the Primus?
Or that he was the Primus all along, but he was both. But again, we don't see any interaction between the houses of Maldraxxus with the Primus. We don't see any of that interaction. So who the fuck knows? I don't fucking know.
I mean, it makes an interesting story. Like, and it's interesting to throw out conspiracy theories, you know, regardless of if they're right or not. It's fun to speculate on what it is, you know. What if the jailer is, you know, I don't know.
Well, it's interesting because we just don't have enough to go off of right now to make any kind of assumption even.
Yeah.
It's very like, like I think we said before, I think it's going to be one of those things where it's kind of a stupid, here's just a new character. There's no connection to anything. Even what we know so far in Shadowlands, it's not going to be something cool like the Maw used to be this fifth whatever covenant bullshit island thingy, and you know now it's in ruins because blah blah blah, and Zorval was actually what the Arbiter used to be because his chest is where all the stuff went into. And it came on his butthole.
I mean, you said that, like, maybe he'll just be this, you know, stupid new character and it won't be. But, I mean, they do have to start coming up with new characters. You know what I mean? Like, they're getting to the end of their established characters, right?
Yeah,
now.
No, I meant to correct myself more obviously there because my point being, like,
right.
Even with what we know right now in the Shadowlands, it's not going to, I don't think it's going to be something as obvious as like the Primus and the Rune Carver are the same person or something like that. You know what I mean? I think it's just going to be, well, he was a baddie and this is what happened. We're threading his timeline into what we already know. And
like
that's fine. It's one of those things like I wish we could find more bits and pieces of lore somewhere that kind of tell us more about, you know, what is going on.
Like in Legion, when you had the Archivist and he would fill out your book based on
kind of like that actually
on your artifact weapon.
Right.
I mean, that was awesome.
Yeah, I liked that.
You know, there's actually are some things like that in the game. There is somewhere in Sinfall, in Revendreth somewhere, there is a lot of stuff talking about the Hidden Ones, which are the Nathrazim, or at least a faction of it. And there's a book about infiltrating things, which kind of has an illegible signature at the end, like a treatise on it, and it supposedly really, 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 really strongly hints at Sire Denathrius's connection with the Nathrazim. Like there's actually things in the game that really point towards that.
Right.
You know, which is like, and I was reading that stuff, and basically, you know, the Ember Wastes or whatever that is, where like all the light is coming down, and like they send all the people to go burn out there in Revendreth.
Yeah.
The reason that exists is because Denathrius in that temple in the basement was doing all, like, that's out there, did all kinds of like shit, like super fucking bad, like creepy experiment shit, and the light found out about it, and attacked Revendreth.
Mm.
And that's why you have that light there to sear it. And that's why in Sanguine Depths, which is probably where this was, there's that trapped Naru.
Huh. So do you think that
And when you...
this is going to lead us into so Shadowlands is going to lead us into a light and dark themed expansion next pack?
Eventually, I think we're going to get there. But that Naru, there's some other stuff with it. And I don't know if it's a quest line or what. But, like, you release it back, but it's like, the Naru is like, I am tainted by, like, all the dark experiments they did, so I can't go back to the other Naru in the light and all that stuff, so it's just going to hang out there or something like that. So the Void at one point had attacked Bastion in the past, and the light had laid siege to Revendreth. So that's interesting to see that these concepts of light and void have done stuff.
Isn't that part of the Naru's life cycle, though? I thought that...
Yeah, there's the dark Naru and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
isn't that like they go from light to dark and it's like part of their life cycle or something?
This
thought
one
that
didn't go dark. This one had other stuff done to it.
Mm.
This wasn't like a normal part of the life cycle. And that's the last raid, Sunwell.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there was the dark Naru there.
Mm-hmm.
There was the void Naru in that dungeon on Argus, the seat of the Triumvirate, that what's-her-nuts sucked dry.
Ilaria.
Ilaria.
Yeah.
Took his power. I don't fucking know. She's Alliance.
Dirty Alliance.
Yeah. Dirty Alliance. You know what I mean? It's just, there's a whole bunch of there that we just don't know. Like, do the Naru actually have a life cycle like that? Or is there something else that causes that to happen? You know what I mean?
Right.
Because the Naru we beat in Seat of the Triumvirate obviously never went back to being light because Aurelia kind of like absorbed its power, right? I'm assuming that it was its life force. I don't remember what happened to the one in the Sunwell.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Well, even the Blood Elf Paladins were using a tainted Naru to gain their power.
They were using the Sunwell, which was tainted by fell magic, and then...
Well, I know there was that's what, like, a part of the quest line has a dark Naru when you're a Blood Elf Paladin, if I remember correctly.
I don't remember. There was something with... that does sound vaguely familiar. I know that the Sunwell was cleansed at some point. I don't know.
What are you, like, when you're talking about a quest line, do you know in what expansion?
It was in BC. That's all I can remember.
Okay.
It might be the same one that's in Sunwell. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Oh yeah. So after his own defeat in Tempest Keep, Kel'Thas, Sunstrider attacked Silvermoon and stole Muru, robbing the Blood Knights of their power source.
Okay, so they were using the Naru, and then he took it, and then they went to... Did they go to the Sunwell after that? I don't know.
Yeah,
Muru was in the Sunwell.
Yeah, so that's where he drained the rest of Muru, which caused him to enter a darkened state. Yeah, I don't know.
That's interesting.
Muru transformed into the Void God in Entropius.
Yeah.
Partway through the encounter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the best I could do. Sorry.
It's all right. That's more than I could... I vaguely remember that, but yeah, I mean... It's
Oh, here you go. So after Cataclysm, the quests relating to Muru were removed, and the Blood Elf Paladin's trainer's dialogue had no longer speaks of manipulating his energies. So I don't know if that was a retcon or what.
No, it's because after that, I believe they cleansed the Sunwell.
Mm-hmm. They did.
So that it was no longer fucked up.
Oh, yep, you're right. And that was because of Muru.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, that's kind of cool they did that.
Yeah.
There was a lot of stuff they did when they did Cataclysm that it changed in the world that reflected stuff that had happened before the Cataclysm, right? You know what I mean? It's just like the undead starting area changed.
Yeah.
You know, to reflect things. It's like it was beefed up. Brill changed. It's just, I don't know. There was a lot of they did a lot of stuff that moved all the areas so that new characters were starting after everything in Vanilla and BC and Lich King had happened. At least in those starting areas, right? It doesn't mean that, you don't go to Outlands or Northrend and it's, hasn't happened yet kind of thing. But no, they do pretty good with tying up things, except for Ashbringer.
That was pretty cool. I like
it
that.
was neat to see because S-Fan got it in Nax on Classic, and he was just like, there's an event, an in-game event, and he's like, it was never on any private servers because it was never scripted. So he went to Scarlet Chapel or whatever that one is and went through it all, and they explained it all, and they went and talked to the dead guy that was locked up in the back, who was there when, was it Renathal killed Alexandros and caused the Ashbringer to be corrupted?
Yeah.
And he was talking, and he says it will be found, and he like looks up in the Outland, or like there's somebody that can forge it or fix it or uncorrupt it or whatever. And he mentioned the Outland. And this was before, I'm assuming it was before Outland was announced and all that stuff. And so it was interesting, and they never followed up with it. But it caused, like, one little bit of lore in the game caused people to spend hours and hours doing shit. And
have you not seen the secret keeping Discord? Like, all it takes, like, those people are amazing. All it takes is one little thing, and they just keep, like, plucking at the strings, plucking at it, and then they find all of the secrets. It's amazing.
I mean, that's assuming that the secrets are in there. This one, though, like people spent time chasing their own shadows because there was never anything in there.
Yeah.
Which sucks. It would have been really cool, but, they retconned it to basically be this weapon is too powerful to belong to any one person kind of thing, and then they gave everybody it in Legion.
Well, to be fair, they gave it to one paladin.
There just happened to be millions of clones of them.
No,
I know. What really, man, Alexandros Migraine in Maldraxxus, sorry, has a blade that looks exactly like the corrupted Ashbringer. Maybe not exactly, but I mean, it's the same fucking blade. It's got the floating thing and at the end of the blade and all that stuff. And it's just like,
oh yeah, what is that called?
It doesn't have a name, does it? I mean, it looks like a version of the Ashbringer, but I mean, he's still the Ashbringer because that was his name, and all that stuff. But it's just, there's this weapon he has, and does it have a name?
I don't know.
I don't know, but it looks exactly like the corrupted Ashbringer, or a even more corrupted version of it. I don't know. And when did he go to the Shadowlands? It would have to be after his defeat in Naxxramas, and after somebody took the corrupted Ashbringer to Renathal, and he killed Renathal, because that's part of the scripted event in Classic.
Star Shatter? Oh, no, that's not. Somebody was talking about one in Mist of Pandaria.
Really?
Is that the one you're talking about? Because it looks a lot like it.
I don't know. Post a picture of it. Oh, it's the one in the background. It's just a similar sword style. It's not that. No. If you look up Alexandros Migraine, like Maldraxxus.
What the hell is that then? Because that has like a silver hand.
No.
Logo and stuff.
No. The one in the foreground is Ashbringer. The one in the background is the panda style sword they're talking about. Not the front one. The front one is Ashbringer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, no. They're making a comment on the other sword because it's that similar blocky style two-handed sword or whatever. But no, Migraine's current sword in Shadowlands is basically corrupted Ashbringer.
I have Alex Migraine.
That
you're
picture
right
there. It's got the L on it, but it's got a bunch of skulls
Right,
on the base of the sword.
Ooh, it looks awesome.
Is that a Legion one though? Oh, that is
No,
badass.
that is-
Right?
That's
That looks good, right?
That's not the corrupted Ashbringer skin from Legion. That is his current weapon in Maldraxxus. So
Oh.
that's what he currently has equipped. That's his sword. And I don't know if he just had it forged when he came here. I want to know. I want to know where the fuck he got that and why it looks like that. Did he have the Primus create it for him?
Well, what's this other one floating around?
What other one?
If you Google it,
What?
he's got a different one in his hand. It's the Necrolord blue, bluish greenish.
The Fatebringer Sword of Origins?
I don't know.
Oh, maybe it is a different one.
You see that? I mean, it looks just like the Ashbringer, but
the blue one with
Yeah.
the skulls on it, or the bone on the hilt.
Fatebringer is what they're saying.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Okay, maybe that's what it is. I don't know what the other. Maybe the other one is the one from.
Still looks badass. That's crazy.
But I mean, it's. I wonder if the other one was an old, like a placeholder.
Maybe Ashbringer is a being and it died too.
Well, it's not, because we know it was created in. Well, actually, isn't the medallion the heart of Inaru?
Oh, I don't know. Is it?
The medallion that whatever they used to create the medallion that's got the silver hand sigil on it is from a being of the light, I believe. Yeah, no, that model must be the one I was looking at. Must have been the artifact skin. That's what it was, and that must have been used as a placeholder. And the image I see is probably old. From like the beta or something like that before they redid his weapon. Fatebringer sword.
That's very interesting.
Is there a news article on this? Oh, there is.
Fatebringer?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what.
Next week.
We're going to go ahead and wrap it up today. We're going to go ahead and maybe do some research on Fatebringer and Migraine's sword. We went ahead and we talked about World First Race a little bit. Talked about some our thoughts on purchasing BOEs for that kind of stuff. We talked a little bit about Threads of Fate, what our thoughts on that kind of were, how we kind of feel about that, or at least how I felt about it. Got a little bit in the weeds about, who exactly is the Rune Carver, and stumbled upon something super interesting with Alexandros Migraine and his suspiciously Ashbringer-looking sword. I had a brain fart there. You can go ahead and catch us at our Facebook page, facebook.com/server restartin. Send us a tweet at server_restart. And we'll go ahead and catch you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.